That's going to be super short and sweet. White matter. Communication. Okay? There are 3 types of fibers in white matter. So you've got, what's the word? Association. Same hemisphere. Different regions. And we're going to mention a few words about that. This is association. Commissural fibers. Similar regions. Different hemispheres. And projection fibers. Upper and lower levels of CNS. So, this one doesn't make sense. So projection fibers basically connect your spinal cord to your brain, and vice versa. Good? Now, what do I mean when I talk about regions? And actually, this is one concept that I forgot to mention here. It's a really interesting concept called Samadhitopi, which I'll be able to explain really quick. Which muscles in your body can produce most precise movements? Most precise, like super exact, very fine movements. Which muscles in your body that you consciously control can produce the most refined? You're right. Fingers. What else? Say again?
Your eyebrows.
Well, take more. Your face, especially if you're Jim Carrey. So, now, if you think about it, providing this level of motor control, this level of precision, requires a lot of neurons. Does that make sense? So, if you look at the motor cortex, you will find that the area of each, like right motor cortex, left motor cortex, the area that controls your fingers, in terms of the size, comparable to the area that controls your leg. See? So it's not about the size of the muscle, it's about the precision of movement. Because your leg doesn't really produce super precise movements, like you jump, you run, that's all. You can't play piano with your leg. You see what I'm saying? So this is called motor Samadhitopi. When the size of the area of the brain, size of the area of the motor cortex, depends on the precision of the movement, but not on the size of the controlled body part. Like your abdomen does not do any precise stuff, right? Now, this is motor Samadhitopi, and we all know that mostly right hemisphere controls left side, left hemisphere controls right side, yes. Other differences between right-handed and left-handed, no clinically important difference. There's a little bit of tendency towards more logical thinking in right-handed individuals and more artistic thinking in left-handed individuals, but that's very, very mild association. So, like, don't think that you can't do calculus if you're left-handed. there is an increased level of psychiatric disorders in ambidextrous people. People who do both hands. Okay? Does that make sense? Now, what association and commisural fibers do? Association fibers, for instance, when I need to do this movement, I need to engage the muscles of my back, of my shoulder, some muscles of my arm, muscles of my chest, right? So association fibers will connect those related muscles. They probably won't connect the areas that control my arm and areas that control my foot. You see what I'm saying? Because hard to imagine doing such a complex movement. Makes sense, right? Commisural fibers, for instance, I often use both hands for the same stuff. So commisural fibers will connect parts of the motor cortex that control muscles that move my arms. Okay? In fact, the largest commisural fiber is this one. It is corpus callosum. Just a commisural fiber that connects to hemispheres. Now we were focusing heavily on the motor part. What about sensory somatotopy? Are the same areas of sensory cortices dedicated to like different body parts? The answer is no. It's actually very interesting. Have you heard about two-point discrimination test? Some of you have. So you take two pins and you apply it to somebody's skin and you start moving them closer and closer. The person whose eyes are closed, they try to determine, they tell you basically, do they feel two pins or they feel like there's only one? So basically when they tell you the moment when they cannot discriminate between the two. So I'm going to give you 4 locations. The fingers, back of your neck, your abdomen, and your leg. In which area the distance between the pins would be the smallest? So you still can say that there are 2 of them. Any ideas? Fingers and surprisingly back of your neck. It's insanely sensitive. On the abdomen, we did on the leg. It was like a few centimeters. So if you have a sibling, or like you have a child or a nephew or niece, we used to play this game when we were in middle school. You close your eyes and your friend moves the finger to your elbow. And you tell them to stop when they reach the elbow. It's impossible. You will always think they are at the elbow, but in fact they're here, or here, or here. Because it's not super sensitive. Does that make sense? So what I'm coming at is the most sensitive parts of your body are your fingers and your face and the back of your neck, right? So the parts of the sensory cortex that will control, in a way, receive the information from these parts of the body will be the largest relatively to the size of the part. That makes sense? So the part that receives the information from your just fingers will be perhaps bigger than the part that receives the information from your leg, which is huge but not super sensitive. So it depends not on the size of the body part, the size of the cortex, but on the amount or density of sensory receptors. You have very dense distribution of sensory receptors on the fingers, not so much in your leg. Following me on this? So this is Samadhitopi.